You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com, and for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike here, host, back with another episode down at Bedford's Camera today, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest, Josh Crutchmer, who is an author. We've got all your books and a new one coming very soon, so we're going to dive into all that. But you have been in the music industry, sounds like since day one. You love Oklahoma red dirt music. There's books about roots music. I have a friend of mine who loves roots music, and he could talk my ear off. But first of all, we're recording on the week of the big return of Cross Canadian.
We are.
So you, I'm sure, are running around like you're with your head cut off, bouncing around to certain things. But I'm excited. I have tickets to tomorrow's show, the Thursday, the opening night. Excited to see it. But let's talk about that to start. Like, what's the current state of your life right now with this huge 4-day music event?
My entire life is chaos. Like, I have a day job. I work for the New York Times, man. I have to very meticulously plan my time off, and I did. Mm-hmm. But I've pretty much blocked everything out this week, except Boys from Oklahoma. And the vibe in Stillwater is nervous, but the good kind of nervous.
Okay.
It's been a long time coming. Everybody in the bands are all ready, especially Ragweed and especially the frontman Cody Canada. But it's all still a little bit surreal. So there's a little bit of excited nervousness, ready to get the show on the road now. And there's so much that they have put into this, not just with practice and production, but they've got a ton of surprises. They're locking down the set list even from me, and we'll get into why that's a bit unusual for them. So they have a lot of surprises in store too that I'm looking forward to. And at the same time, I put out a book in December myself, Red Dirt Unplugged. Ragweed is a huge part of that. And I have another one coming out this week about Ragweed's comeback called Never Say Never. And surely by the time this comes out, it'll be out in the world. But I'm also going to write about Thursday's show for Rolling Stone. So I am pretty much slammed.
Yeah.
I will get to enjoy it, no doubt. But this is something that I really want to be a part of sharing with the world. And that just means that I've got a lot of work for myself and don't get to sit around and party maybe as much as I want to. So I'm going to trust that everybody else in Stillwater will take care of that for me.
Yeah.
And I'll do my part.
Okay. So to that point, like, you get a lot of like very cool experiences. You know, you're in the rooms that everyone wants to be in, right?
Yeah.
But it's your job, right? And so there's a difference, right? There's like, I have to do it, but also probably for you coming across, they want to see you sometimes as a friend as well, right? Because they don't want to be telling stories to guys who are just going to go right.
Well, that's a great point. So this is Oklahoma, and I enjoy all your socials and followed for a good long while, but it's not necessarily, one of the music podcasts or places that may know me. So my quick bio is I went to Oklahoma State in the late 90s, early 2000s, and fell into the Red Dirt scene there back when Ragweed would play the Wormy Dog Saloon for a $3 cover. On a Tuesday night, you could see Cody Canada and Jason Boland playing for free there. Wednesday night, Stoney LaRue. And then if, folk rock, Red Dirt music wasn't your thing, you could go 2 doors down and see the Flaming Lips and All American Rejects playing for free. So, looking back on it, my college experience was a bit of lightning in the bottle.
Right.
And I was a journalist at the time. But even then, I fell into the scene. By the time I graduated in 2001, the Wormy Dog Saloon had pretty much, kind of adopted me as their voice to the community because of all the stories I would write about them. And that never really went away. And along with that came some lifelong friendships, which I have with a great deal many artists, everybody in Ragweed, Boland, Stoney. More modern times, I've gotten very close, not just with Wyatt Flores, but his band and his crew. So I'm at a lot of shows today, even if I weren't trying to write about every show I was at. And I've put out 2 books in a 6-month period, and that's too much. But even if I said I'm looking forward to spending the rest of the year at these shows, just going back into the wings and the shadows for a while and enjoying the music and the friendship and the fellowship, it's impossible for me at this point not to be looking for the story. It's just, I can't turn it off. I've been a journalist too long. I've certainly been working for the New York Times and Rolling Stone too long. Every time I get around music, even if I'm totally trying to check out, and it could be an open bar, and it could be just a great party atmosphere, and I just can never stop thinking to myself, boy, that'd be a good story. Yeah. Somebody tells me how a song came about, or they tell me about a cool concert they just played. My brain just can't turn it off. So I fear that I enjoy it and I love it, and I also fear that I've sentenced myself to the rest of my life never totally being able to detach myself and just rock out again. Yeah. That's a trade-off, and it's a fair one, and I'm happy with it. But it's still the cross I bear.
But it's a passion.
Oh, it's a passion. Oh, it's a great passion.
Not like some days, like you said, 2 books in 6 months is a passion too. Yes. But it's also, it takes a lot of time. And it's if you told some other author, hey, go write 2 books, sometimes they'd be like, oh, that's a job, I don't want to do it. But it truly sounds like it is a proper passion. And
that's the thing. Most authors and most writers in general, and people in literature, they do that for a living. And I happen to be a Deadline journalist who's worked on Deadline for years and years and years. Since I was in college at Oklahoma State, everything about me was Deadline oriented. It was fast writing. It was fast turnaround. So most people, even the best authors in the world, or your favorite English professor that you had in college, if you tell them write 2 books in 6 months, they're probably going to keel over from a heart attack, or at least land themselves in the hospital. Yeah. But journalists are wired differently, and by the time I made it to the New York Times and was involved with Rolling Stone, 2 of the traditionally, at least, biggest and most reputable outlets in the world, and I was able to immerse myself in that type of journalism. It made stuff like this really easy and second nature and fun to me, and I realized it was something unique I could offer to certainly music as a whole and the country and folk rock genres, but especially Red Dirt, where I'm from. So that's how we ended up here.
So from a young age, like, do you grow up with mom and dad in the library? Are they big readers? Like, how do you gravitate towards journalism to start as a young age as a career?
Mom was a huge reader, but she read fiction, like all the stuff that, like, your boomer mother would read, Danielle Steele and all that. And I never read a word of any of that, but I did become like a fan of, like, I don't know what the word is, the printed word maybe. I grew up mostly with the internet, but I still was a kid in the 80s, and they didn't have it then. And my grandparents, my mom's parents, they always subscribed to the Daily Oklahoman and the Tulsa World, and we would go to their house in Oklahoma City I grew up in Omaha, so it's like an hour away. This is Oklahoma, folks know that. I would, every Sunday we'd go over and just see her family, my mom's family, and they would have those newspapers there, and I would flip open to the sports page and read about what I saw on TV yesterday, and I just thought it was so cool. So I got this like weird, like, I don't know, itch is a stranger. I got this like feeling that the only thing that I would ever really truly be good at was that, once I realized I was going to be a journalist. So rather than fight it, I just leaned into it and made a life out of it. And here we are now. I get to be a part of sharing one of the biggest cultural events in our state's modern history with the world because of it. So it's funny how things work out.
Yeah. So clearly, young age, journalism, love of this. Why Oklahoma State then? What takes you there? And then when you go into Oklahoma State to do journalism, do you ever think that music journalism is going to be your, like, are you reading Rolling Stone thinking I want to do that, or are you thinking any form of journalism, I'm going to be on the news, I'm going to do this? Like, what was kind of state of you at 18 going to college?
I grew up, like, I have a bunch of athletes in my family. Okay. My dad and his two brothers played college football, and his two brothers played at University of Oklahoma in Colorado. I mean, they were very good. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with sports in my family, and that's what I was reading as a kid, was sports journalism. But even as I became like old enough to think this might be something I want to do, and I thought I would be sports writing, I don't know, maybe it was just growing up in Oklahoma. Maybe it was just being from Omaha and not realizing how big the world was, or thinking the world was too big. I just thought, well, I could never make it to the New York Times or Rolling Stone, so I shouldn't even try. It's one of those things. Like, it just seemed, at that time, major media was just something that appeared from above, and in Oklahoma, that wasn't something that you kind of even could dream about. So I kind of didn't. I thought I'd rise through the ranks and maybe make it like on News 9 or the Daily Oklahoman, one of those type things. So that was always kind of like my goal. But I liked it. I liked the writing in the Oklahoman. I liked the wit of Barry Trammell and John Rhodey back then, and later Jenny Carlson. As she was a few years older than me, but somebody whose work I could look at. And so, like, I got this sort of feeling by the time I was in high school that I could do that, and that seemed like fun. It seemed better than a real job. I didn't want to go Mom wanted me to be a lawyer, and I was like, not really cut out for that. I actually did try law school. Anyway, so to back up, so we have an athletic family, and as I mentioned, an OU legacy in the family. So I started out at OU, and I majored in journalism there, 97 and 98, my first 2 years. And I had always, like, my family was Sooner fans, and that was kind of part of who we were. But I just didn't have a great time there. Honestly, it was just, I went to OU with all my friends from high school, and by the time we got there, they had different things they wanted, and I had different things I wanted, and we didn't have the same friendship we had in high school. And so kind of after about a couple of years, 3 semesters, I was like, this isn't for me. And so one weekend in between semesters, I just drove up to Oklahoma State and hung out with some friends I knew there. Had such a great time that woke up the middle of the afternoon the next day on somebody's floor with some empty bottles around and went, okay, that was a good time. And went. Before I left Stillwater to come back to finish that fall semester, I just went and enrolled at OSU. Yeah. I transferred all my credits up there, became a journalism major there. And within a year, I was covering the basketball program. I was writing about columns about football, and I got an internship at the Oklahoman here in Oklahoma City. So it happened very fast. Once I got to Oklahoma State, it was always still sports until my senior year, when I realized that this Red Dirt music scene existed. Yeah. And I started writing about Red Dirt every chance I could. I actually, last night, went and dug up the very first email I ever sent to Cross Canadian Ragweed's manager in the fall of 2000, asking if I could interview them. And that became the first story I ever wrote. Yeah. It's so funny that you bring this up, because 12 hours ago, I was on my laptop digging that email up and sending it back to them. Kind of a how far have we come moment. So I never set out to be a music journalist until I got into Red Dirt. And then, even then, from the time I graduated in 01 until I put out the Red Dirt book in 2020, I had maybe 10 total articles. I wrote some things, but usually it was like if somebody died. When Red Dirt icon Tom Skinner died, I was living and working at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and I wrote something about him there. When Ragweed broke up the first time, I happened to be living and working in Chicago at the Chicago Tribune, and their last show was in Chicago at Joe's Bar. So I wrote about that in the Tribune, and that got some attention. Maybe I should resurface that this week, actually. That got some attention, and the band took note. I've been friends with, by that time I was friends with Ragweed, but they really appreciated that, and that kind of reminded me of the place that I could feel if I had the time and the means. But it really wasn't until I got to the New York Times. If I list all the places that I lived, actually, I'll do that. Why not?
Yes,
Why not
let's
tell
do
you?
it. Let's
I
go
left
back.
Oklahoma.
Come on.
I left Oklahoma City in 2005. Spent a year in Phoenix, followed by 3 years in Omaha, 3 years in Chicago, 3 years in Minneapolis and St. Paulus. Don't forget the other Twin City. Less than a year in Buffalo, and then 3 years in Cleveland. And when I'm in Cleveland, the Cavaliers win the NBA championship, and by that time I'm directing the coverage of that.
Oh wow!
And I remember carrying around newspapers the night they won, like at 3 a.m. downtown. All the bars are closed, but nobody went home. And I've got all these Cleveland championship newspapers, and I'm being mobbed like a celebrity. People are just running up and grabbing these newspapers out of my hands, and they wanted something they could hold and remember it by. And I was the very first person that had something tangible. It was the next day's Cleveland newspaper, and I had a pretty successful journalism career up until that point. But it was seeing that play out. Ended up in me directly getting a job at the New York Times. And I've been there for 8 years, the longest I've ever been anywhere. And I live and work in New York now. But the New York Times gives me the time, the schedule, and the means. The New York Times does not pay poorly. We'll say that is what it is. To reconnect with my Oklahoma roots. So I have Oklahoma State season football tickets, and I build into my schedule every year, even before I start writing books, 10, 20, 30 trips a year to see music. That's even gotten bigger since I've started covering the scene as relentlessly as I have. But it was doing all that I just said, my path out of Oklahoma, that actually led me back here in a way that is, I think, something that actually is more of a contribution to our state and our culture than anything I was doing when I lived here, ironically enough.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes sometimes.
Well, and also, it goes without saying, yes, you have books coming out. Yes, fairly recently, right? In the last 5 years, you have all this. But it takes an outrageous amount of effort and, 15 plus years of actual serious graft and traveling around the country, living in different states and working. And
it's hard to convey that now for two reasons. One, media now is different. I don't know that I could do that now if I were 20 years old. I don't know that those...
You'd probably have another podcast.
I would have definitely had a podcast.
Right?
100% had a podcast. But it worked for me because everything I was doing and all that time was so that I didn't have to leave journalism. I saw the industry around me not thriving.
Yeah.
And a lot of the jobs that I listed don't exist anymore. So I kind of knew all along that I needed to get to the New York Times to have a chance to do it forever, have a chance to be a journalist forever. And that's what I wanted to do. And then once I got there, then I was able to think, okay, how can I parlay this, a really good and important job, into something that also allows me to get back to where I'm from.
Yeah.
If I did it today, I'd have to cut corners. I'd have to get to the Times quicker, or I'd have to just blow up with my podcast.
Right.
But it's possible. I still want to do it, and I would still find a way, because I guess I'm just kind of wired that way. But I also recognize that, there's not a ton to my story that is just going to inspire somebody else to go do the same thing. Which is weird, because I one of the most important parts of my journalism is continuing to bring new and young and talented people into it. But it's harder and harder for me to look at myself as a role model. I can't honestly tell anyone they should follow in my footsteps, even though I know people look at me and want to because it's really cool.
Well, yeah, they see you backstage, they see you with all these people, they see you building all these relationships. They want that, right?
So
but they don't want to go work for 15 years and travel around the country and maybe work side gigs and and like
that's what I did. And the best I can do,
hard work.
The best I can do is offer the advice that if you feel like that's what you want to do, you're going to do it. You have to, and you have to find ways to pursue it. It's just that the means by which you get there is going to likely be different than the means by which I did, and so I never can give anybody like a handbook. Like you have to do this, this, and this. I just when I get asked now, and I get asked a lot, I try to tell folks to understand the music first, understand the people first, and foster as many relationships as you can, and then ask yourself, how can I reach their fans? And once you do those, you will have set yourself on a course, and that's what I did. It's just I took a really long and winding road to it.
Yeah. Talking about like that long and windy road, and you're in an industry that technology is turning upside down. Yeah. Right. Like as you're trying to grow, and like you mentioned, like you always wanted to be in New York Times, but at the time, like it's like you're climbing the ladder, and the ladder's being stripped from you as you're climbing it in certain ways, and you've got to jump and climb and find your way up there, and you eventually get there. Yeah,
and you're looking around and. The ladder is gone from beneath your feet, but now here's this rope you can pull. Right. And then at the very top of it, you realize the rope isn't tied to anything, and you're like a cartoon, and the rope falls out of your hand, and you find someone else to grab. And it worked for me, but I can't really in good conscience say that, like, thousands of people should go out and do that. But doing all that now allows me to sort of turn my own bio on its head. I told you when I got started, I never thought that being in big journalism was something you could dream of from Oklahoma. And lo and behold, a kid from Omaha who graduated from public university in Oklahoma is responsible for the front page of the New York Times and responsible for a great deal of important stories in Rolling Stone. Yeah. So it's a success story. I'm happy with that.
Tell me about that moment that you hear the music, then that Red Dirt moment when you're like, this is, it's always athletics until that senior year moment, and you're like, this is the light bulb moment. I want to write about this, and then you dive into the scene and realize this is so many stories.
I can tell you exactly when it happened. I was barely 21, so this would have been 2000. I was barely 21, and I was walking around Stillwater with a friend of mine from back home in Omaha that was in college there. And we had gotten into like John Prine and Steve Earle, and I'd go over to his house. Had an off-campus house. It's Jeff Humphrey. He's gonna hear this. Hey, Jeff. He'd play me John Prine and old guy Clark songs and Steve Earle, and I just kind of really fell into that world of Americana that I was listening to, and he and some others told me that, hey, there's some Americana music like around town. I didn't know it was called Red Dirt. It's like there's some people that whose names I keep popping up are playing all the time. Ragweed is one of them. And I knew the Great Divide was from there. And so one night I was just like, hey, let's go find some Americana music. It was like a Tuesday night. And we start walking down Washington Street, the Strip, and look into one bar and someone's doing kind of an old rock cover, and it was good, and it ended up being a place that I frequented often. But we leave that bar, and immediately from out on the street, I hear this like acoustic guitar, and they hear this very raspy voice, and I look to my friend. It's okay to swear on this podcast, or should I bleep myself out?
I can edit it out. It's no big deal.
I turn to my friend, and I go, does that sound Americana? And he looks at me and he goes. And so we walk up the stairs into the Wormy Dog Saloon, and I see Stoney LaRue play for the first time. And that is the moment that I stepped out of my life and into what became my life. Yeah. Full stop. I was never the same after that. All I wanted to do after that moment was go back there and hear that music some more. And that was my gateway into everything Red Dirt. That's through Stoney. I met Bowen. I met The Great Divide. I met Cody. I met everybody. I felt comfortable enough because of that, I started writing about these artists. I started writing about the Wormy Dog, and within a matter of months, I was just part of the scene. I was cutting class to go to the Yellow House where they all lived and watch them sing until the sunrise. It happened real fast, but that was the moment. It was just wanting to hear something new and original in Stillwater and kind of knowing it was out there and just walking around until I heard it. And once I heard it, I was never the same again.
Do you have any musical talent in your body, or is it all writing?
Oh, I mean, I got good enough to, I can carry a tune and I can play an acoustic guitar. I just can't do it. I feel like such an amateur around these folks, so I never like really pursued it.
Yeah.
But what it does with me is it has helped in my journalism because it's helped me be really critical. It's helped me set a really high standard for what I think good music is. And it's not to... This is gonna sound jerky, but I'll say it. If I hear a song and I'm like, oh, I could do that, like it probably means that it's only an okay song. Yeah. So yeah, I have musical talent and understanding. I sort of stopped at the amateur level, and by the time I got around these artists, I was like better left to the pros.
Right. Well, and also because you're getting this hands-on experience, you're getting to see them backstage. You're getting to see them just sing on a couch with a few beers and their guitar. Yeah. You know, whereas the music industry obviously has transformed and a lot of technology helps, and even some of the best artists don't even get heard because of the scene or because of what's in the news. That there's all these little factors where you get to see raw talent up close. Yes. And you've seen it for 25 plus years now, and had this behind the curtain experience that you get to have. Yeah, I'm not surprised that you would listen to a song and be like, that's trash.
The analogy for my life musically is at every turn it could have just stopped and I could have just faded into the background and become a fan. All those things I just cited from being in college at OSU, that was a chain. That was everything was a domino effect. One thing caused the other, and here more than 15 years later I get to New York and realize that everybody who plays music that I like has to come through New York, and most of them have some business tie, either a manager or a publicist or both in New York. And I suddenly realized I was around people I could make connections with there. And my whole life has been like that. Just everything's felt like a domino. And the analogy is it feels like having been walking a tightrope for 25 years, but only realizing at the end of it you're on a tightrope, not realizing that this could have all gone haywire. Yeah. So where it has left me is I think I personally would prefer to just hang in the wings and look past the curtains when there's a show. But the second I see a light come on, the second I hear a roar of a crowd, like it's hard for me not to just be like almost wide-eyed like a kid again. Yeah. It's Wednesday, and I honestly don't know how I'm going to react when I hear Ragweed's Downbeat tomorrow, or even Turnpikes for that matter. I know I've imagined it for 6 months. I know that in my head I can't turn it off. I've thought about what Ragweed playing Alabama and Turnpike playing Good Lord Laurie is going to sound like there, because I go to that stadium all the time. I'm a season ticket holder. I know what it sounds like when it's loud. So it's hard not to imagine it, but I am trying my best to let myself be surprised and live in the moment. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Do you know where you're going to be standing?
I have sort of two different places I'll be. I've got tickets every night like everybody else, but I also will be backstage with the artists a lot because, again, every single night I'm writing about this. I'm on the clock every night this week writing, and I want to bring to the world the last moments before Ragweed sees a crowd as a band again. Mm-hmm. I want to bring to the world the first thing they say when they walk off stage. So I will be in the wings and the shadows, but I also have tickets. I also have spots in the crowd that I can go just enjoy it, and I plan every single night to do that enough that I feel like I have taken it in.
That you get the fan experience from being in a crowd,
right?
And
because I don't get to enjoy just being a fan as much as I would like, and I'm not going to get to do it this week, but I'm going to do as much of it as I can.
Yeah, it's going to be an emotional experience.
Oh yeah, it
right?
is. Oh, Definitely.
It's good every night.
Yes, definitely. I don't know, like, everybody has their own standard for what brings out tears and emotion. I ain't gonna be a wreck. I'm gonna be just bawling, and that's fine. I'm not at all embarrassed to say that. Not this week.
This is... It's cool to have like your timeline as the birth of like your musical journalist career, as well as like the birth of like these guys were playing on the street, in the bars for nothing. You know? Like, you're in totally separate industry, totally separate careers, but at the same time you've just paralleled this whole time, which is special.
Yes, it really is, and it's become something that I don't necessarily know how to deal with, that I have, through doing all that, putting myself into some sort of a spotlight on my own. And some of it, as you hinted at, is...
Keep going, I want to reset that.
Some of it you brought up was it's not necessarily nefarious. There are folks and times that people are obviously more interested in me because of who I'm close to than the stories that I can tell myself. But I've also just like, man, most of my circle of friends now, the people that are closest to me in life, have all been because I did this. So it's a fair trade-off. There are so many people that I know and that I've become friends with because of my position that it offsets the folks that are clearly trying to get close to you for this or that reason.
Right.
And another byproduct of it, and this has to do with how big Red Dirt is now, and the fact that Wyatt Flores and Caitlin Butts and Southall and Josh Malloy are just getting bigger by the second, and I've gotten to be on the ground floor of their careers. A byproduct of that and being associated with them is that, I get recognized. I got recognized at the Thunder game last night wearing a Go Thunder shirt. It's not fame, but it's something adjacent to it. And I never once envisioned that being a consequence of the work that I was doing. But now that it's happened, it certainly is a way to objectively say there's a big group of people, and they may actually be fans of somebody else that's making the actual music, but they make me and my work feel appreciated. And that's something that was so far-fetched when I started writing about it that I never even considered. Yeah. So that's been really cool. That's been really cool. Feeling like, not just feeling like you're a part of the scene, but feeling like you're actively making it better for fans, especially in my home state. Like, if I had done this in one of those other places I lived, if I had gone on to become this oracle of Chicago music, that would have been cool, and I would have absolutely embraced it. But the fact that I'm doing it for the place that I'm from is there's a big bonus to that. Yeah, and that was never expected that, never even thought that was a thing. And so I am trying my best to embrace and feel that role as best I can.
Yeah. And to your point, like the fortunate part about this podcast is that, you get to write about people your entire life, right?
Yeah.
You write about other people's stories. Very rarely do you get to write about yourself.
Yes.
And so I get to selfishly sit down and I get to listen to your story and hear you, and so do the people listening, because we're fortunate that you don't get to do this very often, because it's your job to write about other people, because that's generally what the fans want to hear, right?
That also makes it really easy to do 2 books in 6 months.
Yeah.
If I am being the conduit for Evan Felker's words about the new album Turnpike's going to drop, if I am the conduit for Wyatt Flores to express to the world in ways he can't in a 5-minute song what the time he took off and the importance of mental health to him is, if I can do that, that interests the fans, but it's also so second nature to me because it's what I do for a living. Yeah. Telling my own story will be harder. Like, it's fun to sit and talk about it. I have also done a little bit of maybe cursing, maybe not, of myself by this position in the wings and conversations like this, because there are people, and the lead to the Red Dirt Unplugged book is John Folk, the the great agent over in at William Morris, and somebody who was very instrumental in Voice from Oklahoma concerts happening at all. He thinks I'm living a real life. What's the movie? Almost Famous. He thinks I'm living a real life, almost famous role, and he's far from the only one that says that. So at some point, I do have to reckon with that. It's not going to be this year, but at some point, I'm going to have to reckon with, like, okay, do I sit down and just write a book about all the things I've seen from the wings? Because I've seen some stuff out there.
I see a lot of things.
So you're exactly right, and I'm starting to hear that more and more from a lot of folks that are probably going to force my hand. Not this year, but in the coming years for sure.
So Red Dirt Unplugged was the first one.
Okay.
The first book. Tell me about what leads to you writing and why the books come out.
Okay. So what happened was Red Dirt Unplugged is actually the sequel to Red Dirt. Okay. So Red Dirt comes out in 2020. What actually happened was 2018. I had flown from New York down to New Braunfels, Texas, where Cody Canada lives, and I jumped in his bus to ride with him and The Departed for a few days. And the first night we drive 8 hours the first day, and we do a pop-up unannounced show. Cody plays acoustic at Eskimo Joe's in Stillwater. We have a real good time. All of our old friends come out. And after it, we're sitting on the bus, Cody's bus. We've had a great night. And on the bus across from me at this table, just like we're talking now, is John Cooper from the Red Dirt Rangers, a founding member and one of the forefathers of Red Dirt. And he gets really serious for a moment. He's kind of emotional. And he goes, Josh, look, if you don't write about Red Dirt, it's going to get lost to history because we're losing people. It hadn't been too long since Tom Skinner had passed and Brandon Jenkins. Those are people that were very, very, very important to the Red Dirt existing at all. And he was kind of feeling that. And so if you don't tell this story, nobody will. Mm-hmm. I took it to heart. And that's why it led me to write Red Dirt. Okay. So Red Dirt is part history. There's a lot of Red Dirt Rangers, a lot of Tom Skinner and Bob Childers. There's even a chapter about Garth Brooks and how all those people helped him actually get out of Stillwater and into country music. Mm-hmm. He says without Bob Childers, there's no Garth Brooks, and I think he's right. So that was 2020, and between 2020 and 2024, the scene just blew up. And a lot of it was Zach Bryan is sort of his roots are kind of Red Dirt adjacent. He's got a lot of the same friends and a lot of the same inspiration, but his style, which he kind of crafted on his own, is also what Red Dirt was. And so he doesn't just put a fresh light on artists from Oklahoma. His style also was very similar to Red Dirt. And so that opens the door for Red Dirt artists to be heard because people now want more of that. Yeah. And so that gets us Caitlin Butts, Wyatt Flores, Josh Malloy, these just like raw talents that can sit there with a guitar and have a great story and get you invested in their lives. So that all happens in 4 years. And so the Red Dirt book, the first one is all the history, and 4 years later, the scene has changed so much, and it's getting all this attention that I kind of go, man, I have to go catch up. So in 2024, last year, I spent all year writing Red Dirt Unplugged, and that Unplugged is everything that's happened since the scene blew up. Yeah. So Red Dirt is more history, and Red Dirt Unplugged is more vibes, but I enjoyed them both. There's just so much and such detail in both of them.
The scene's in great hands.
I think so.
Because I've seen, obviously, J.R. Carroll plays for Zach. Caitlin, I missed. I was supposed to sit down with her before her Criterion show. Tower Theater show. Yeah. I missed it. I missed a flight back. I didn't get back in time. And so I'm going to have to reschedule that one. Taylor opened for Red Clay Strays at Canes. She's incredible. Lance Rourke opened for Wyatt. Yes. And he did this Criterion show. I mean, there are all these amazing names in here. Yeah. And there's much more coming.
Yes, exactly.
Like
all of a sudden, the floodgates are open.
Blaine opened up for American Aquarium at Jones Assembly, and all these people that are coming. It can't help but make you excited for your career.
It makes me super excited for my career.
As a fan, too, right?
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that people listening to this should also go check out Tanya Little's book, which she called Dirt and Spirit. And it's also about the history of Red Dirt, and she just spent years with the founders of the scene and built this great rich tale of the framework of how it came to be at all. So now all of a sudden, like Red Dirt feels like a real scene. It has gone from feeling like this little secret we were all in on if we were in the scene to our own version of, Seattle, Detroit, Memphis, Austin. The world knows about Red Dirt now, and the world likes it. And my job is to be there for the people that want to know more about it.
Yeah. So you spent a year following Wyatt?
I really did.
How was that experience for someone who's such a young talent coming up in the scene?
Wyatt's half my age, and Wyatt may be the first artist that's half my age that really just made me stop and be invested in every aspect of his life. And then when I got to know him, I realized that he and I had very similar upbringings. My dad was a mechanic. His dad was a welder. He went... The 10 days he spent at Oklahoma State and the life lesson song were actually spent at OSU Omaha in my hometown. And he's from Stillwater, and I often will claim Stillwater as my hometown. I spent years there. Yeah. And then we realized we had a bunch of overlapping friends. So I very quickly went from covering him like a journalist to feeling like to being a friend. And I think we probably classify each other as family these days.
Like
we hang out a lot.
Brother?
Yeah, that's how I think we probably both feel about each other. Watching him deal with his own demons when he took time off last February, and then watching him do the soul searching he did, and being there for that was incredibly inspiring. And it also gave me a deeper and richer understanding of where his music comes from. So it's much easier for me to actually write about him now.
Yeah.
And that Red Dirt Unplugged has his entire life story in there, but I'm now just at a point with him that I'm going to be writing about him for the rest of my life for sure, because he's so interesting and genuine, and it also translates to his music that there's always going to be more to his story, and I'm going to be there as long as he'll let me, which I think is going to be a while.
Yeah. There's a really good clip of him at Red Rocks. Right?
Yes.
That famous clip of him at Red Rocks.
Yeah. And
he talks about his mom and dad being in the crowd, and he has to step back as he gets emotional.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw it. I was like, that kid popped up on my Instagram, and I'm like, oh, let me go listen to this. And immediately it was like, wow.
Let me tell you about that. Okay, so that is a great example with Wyatt of the experience that most people get with him. The experience that I had with him. I had that experience in New York in December of 23 when he played up there. But what it is with Wyatt, if you're outside of his original target demographic, which was people his age on TikTok, but I'm on TikTok, I just wasn't his target demo. If you're outside of that, you often end up at his show for the first time on somebody else's recommendation or word of mouth. You're giving him the benefit of the doubt. Well, that's what happened at Red Rocks. 9,500 Turnpike Troubadours fans gave him the benefit of the doubt because they heard his name and they were trusting of Turnpike. Turnpike's not going to have somebody that we don't like open. So 9,500 people were in their seats for Wyatt's set, but they weren't TikTok teens. They didn't follow his story. They didn't know. They didn't know how intense a song like "Please Don't Go" is. Okay, they'd heard of him and they were giving him a chance, but they weren't Wyatt Flores fans. And I have my own videos of 9,500 people when he starts playing, sitting down and politely clapping, and then I have a video from the last song an hour later. That entire place is standing and screaming his words back to him. Like he and I, watching him do all those things, win over an entire crowd and make them fully invested in his life story, which he did in that clip. That clip is what did it.
Yeah.
But by the end of that, like everybody there they weren't just like pulling for him as a human. They were genuine fans of his music. And he's got some bangers of songs that can be quickly picked up on by a crowd. And so they were all screaming the lyrics to West of Tulsa back to him in his last song. And it was just echoing off those rocks. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And at the end of last year, talking to him and his team, like they still point to Red Rocks as the highlight, and that wasn't even a headlining show they were opening, but it was in impact that it made on so many people that made it really feel seismic.
Yeah.
And that was the experience that a lot of people have when they see Wyatt Flores for the first time. And it was mine. Watching almost 10,000 people get to have it at once felt like something that should be in a movie to me. It was incredible. And I included it in Red Dirt Unplugged, but I just write. It was one of those things that writing couldn't do justice. It was truly you just had to be there moment. Sorry, I can't. I'm out of words for that one.
Yeah, I mean, people. I mean, they probably can find the clip, or maybe they've seen it because it went completely viral. It was such a great clip. Let's talk about the new book. Tell me about that.
Never Say Never. Okay, so I found out last August that Ragweed was going to reunite. I was in the process of wrapping up writing and releasing Red Dirt Unplugged. It was wonderful. That experience was great, but I also knew this was coming.
Yeah.
I knew Ragweed was going to reunite. I was able to spend time with the entire band and write a really cool story for Rolling Stone when it was announced. But I started holding stuff back, and I just kind of went, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for Red Dirt to be the center of the music world. Mm-hmm. And I have an obligation to rise to the moment, and I just made a snap decision. Red Dirt Unplugged got about a year of press before it was released. It had a long pre-sale window. It had a long time to be hyped. I could do every media appearance I wanted.
Yeah.
But I just thought there were going to be 180,000 people here over 4 days. I thought I should just surprise these folks with a book about this. And again, this goes back to me being a sports journalist at once and that deadline writing and seeing it the next day. I wanted to be able to tell Ragweed's story as soon as possible. And so this is a surprise drop. This is a guerrilla move with a book. It's one thing for an artist to do it with an album. It is, there's nobody in the business that would tell me it's a good idea to do a surprise book drop. But I just think if I go out there and tell everybody, you want to read about this?
Yeah.
That most people know now my name and my work. You want to read about this comeback? I've got the inside story. I've talked to everybody in Ragweed. I've talked to everybody that's going to be on that stage. Yeah. I've gone to Oklahoma State, and I've gotten the behind the scenes of how it came together from their perspective. I did the same thing with the promoters that are putting it on and with the business side. I have gotten the backstory to how a Ragweed reunion was possible. It's a wonderful story, and it's so cool. And some of the details are just fun. They're just super fun. And so I have all that. I don't think that there's any point in me saying now, that book will be out in December. We got a long pre-sale window. Go order, tell your friends. It's got to be here now.
Right.
I have to go to these 4 shows. Every single night I have to write what the show went, wrap it up, send it off to an editor the next day, 4 nights in a row. And that last night, everything has got to be wrapped up Monday. I have to have everything in this entire book pulled together, 200 and whatever pages, but those last 4 chapters have to be in there. Yeah. And then I immediately print it. I just have to send it off immediately and print it.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so I call it Never Say Never because that's, I think, the very appropriate context to Ragweed playing again. NeverSayNeverBook.com is where I put it too, so it's easy to find.
Okay. When you hear the rumblings that there is a return, where are you? And then how is this with the journalist side of you that's like, hang on a second, like, is this real? Can I post this? Like, because I think the rest of us, like mere mortals, saw that they changed their Instagram or they like whatever it was on Facebook. Maybe they changed their profile picture or whatever it was, and everyone's like, "Is this happening?"
All right, I'll tell you the full story. This is a good one. First of all, I've been like wondering this forever, to the point that last February 2024, I reached out to Cody, who was getting the calls for a reunion were driving him up the wall on social media. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, let's just talk. I'll put it in Rolling Stone, whatever you want to say about a Ragweed reunion, you say. He goes, it's never going to happen. He did. He said, I'll go on the record and say it's never going to happen. I am not playing with Ragweed anymore. I'm in
and this was the last 14 months ago?
14 months ago.
Yeah, last February,
it happens, it goes up. It doesn't make anybody look bad. It does make Cody Canada sound like Ragweed's not getting back together, but that by itself didn't sell with him. And that to say it played a higher role that didn't set well once it was out, it would be exaggerating. But it was one of the factors that went into him rethinking the notion that Ragweed could never play again. When that printed and Cody saw how steadfast he was in saying no. He said, I don't know that I like myself sounding like that. Now, of course, several other things happen too. Tons of his peers and contemporaries began telling him more than they ever had that the chance for a reunion is also a chance for him to just take a victory lap for all he's meant to red dirt. Mm-hmm. So that plays out, and then by last summer, when Oklahoma State was bound and determined to have a concert at the stadium, somebody brought up ragweed. And once that happened, once the combination of Cody Canada rethinking his feelings and what his friends, family, and kids would think of him if he was just only going to put forth a negative image as ragweed was concerned, and the chance to do a big show in Stillwater, and I've actually not asked for the details, but I'm certain that a stadium show came with enough money to make it worth his while.
Right.
The combination of all those things made him rethink it. So here's where I found out. For those of you that don't know, Cody Canada is managed by his wife, Shannon. Shannon's a very good friend of mine. So The Departed played a festival last August in Chalice, Idaho, Braun Brothers reunion. It's on the side of a mountain. Reckless Kelly and Mickey and the Motorcars put it on. It's 3 nights. On the middle night, Friday, The Departed, I believe they had already played, and the headliner that night was Wade Bowen. So I am sitting on a blanket on an August night in Chalice, Idaho, listening to Wade Bowen. The blanket next to me is Shannon Canada, and both of us are drinking little Truly seltzers. We're very coherent, but we've had enough of a buzz to start giving each other a little bit of shtick. And at one point she taps me on the shoulder and goes, Crutch, he's doing it. And the idea, the notion of a ragweed reunion was so foreign to me. The idea that it was even a thing was so far away that it didn't register. She's like, hey, he's doing it. And I'm like, oh, she must mean he's going to the bus to get a beer or something, or he's doing it means he's going to go play a song with Wade Bowen in a bit. That's what she means. And then I go back to watching the show, and literally it was like a cartoon double take after 5 minutes. 5 whole minutes passed before I realized that what she meant was ragweed's playing again. Yeah. And so my eyes just get as big as silver dollars, and I look at her and she starts laughing. And now I realize that I can't tell anybody this, including anybody around me, so I just have to shut up.
Right.
So I just tapped her. I let a few minutes go, and I get a little anxious, and I go, hey, that's going to be my story, right? And she goes, oh, yeah. So once I found out about it, then it was just a matter of I had to wait until they actually worked out all the details, which got us into October. So that's how I carried the secret around for 2 months.
As a journalist, that's so hard.
It was a journalist, fucking real hard. But I did, and it was worth it. And I would think probably getting that heads up, but not sharing it.
Yeah.
It was a result of just the position that I'm in. I never felt like there was any chance of somebody else beating me to it or it being leaked out as a story. So I just went and very calmly and very deliberately traveled around to the places that The Departed were playing where I could talk to Cody. I went and talked to all the band members about how, are they excited to? How are they feeling? I was able to be really slow and deliberate because I had 2 months to do it.
Right.
So I felt like I wanted to do it right. And then they got to effectively to announce their comeback. At the same time, I stuck a big Rolling Stone story up about it, and all 4 band members were represented in there. That had been the first time everybody in Ragweed had gone on the record in 20 years. So it has been a long time. So I got to just, out of the gate, show folks a side to this band that hadn't been shown in a while, and that was great.
Yeah. Is this comeback, you mentioned it being such an iconic moment for the state in general and Red Dirt scene. Yeah. Is this, outside of the Cavs winning and you're working there, is this your biggest moment as a career?
Yeah, it is. Look,
do you see it like that, or do you just see it as, hey, I'm writing for my friends who I've known for 20, 15, 20 years?
I see it like this. And the analogy folks use is this is the Super Bowl of red dirt. And people that say that are right, but the Super Bowl is just one day.
Yeah.
This is 4 days.
This is 4 days.
So...
And not just them, it's some huge heavy hitters too,
exactly.
right? Like that's the whole part. It's not just one band, it's 5 or 6
What
bands,
I've been
right?
telling myself is this is the biggest moment in red dirt. I have been the eyes and ears of red dirt to the world for the last half decade, really for 25 years, but very visibly since 2020. So I have a responsibility to rise to the moment, and that's what I am going to do. Mm-hmm. I am going to rise to the moment. I am going to cover this like it is my own personal Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't think I will ever cover anything this big again, no matter who or where it is.
Yeah.
I could be tasked with writing about Taylor Swift playing to 1 million people somewhere, and I don't think it will be as big or as important as this. Mm-hmm. So it's a super big deal to me, but it's also been a challenge that I've just leaned all the way into. I want to share it with the world in a book. I want to share it with the world in a Rolling Stone story on Friday morning. I want to share. I don't want to leave anything on the table because this is this scene's moment in the sun. This is Red Dirt's moment in the sun, and I have a responsibility to treat it that way.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, moving somewhere completely different. Tell me about your tattoos.
Okay.
Got some very. They're not. I mean, there's a little theme here, but.
Okay.
Is this like a soccer field and someone scored?
You have figured it out. My right arm is soccer, and my left arm is music.
Okay.
Music at home. So I got my dog right there. That's the Red Dirt book logo, which you recognize. Tom Skinner with my very first tattoo on my left arm. That's one of his lyrics.
Okay.
My second book was called Motel Cowboy Show. The 10 with the orange heart is a reference to the January 2001 plane crash that killed 10 people. I wanted to be able to see that. That's why it's a there. My right arm is soccer. On the outside, these are all diagrams of soccer goals. They're all soccer goals of teams that mean something to me. So my family heritage is Germany. This goal here is a diagram of the goal that won the World Cup for Germany in 2024 in extra time. That's Mario Götze's goal. That's across from Andre Schürrle. Germany wins the World Cup on that. If I were creating a diagram for newspapers or websites, it would look like this of these goals.
Yeah.
So I wanted tattoos that look like something I would do. So I had this done in Germany. On the inside of my arm, that's the goal that won Manchester City's first Premier League title in 2012. Okay. And the little B is a reference to the city of Manchester. And up on my arm where you can't see, I have Landon Donovan's goal in 2010 that sent the U.S. through to the knockout stages of the World Cup. Yeah. So I got 3 soccer goals on my right arm. They're very fun because they all take me back to some different place and time in my life. They're awesome.
So soccer is the release for you when you're not writing about music.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's because, I'm a huge fan of all Oklahoma State sports, but for the bulk of my career as a journalist, I couldn't get too attached to a lot of U.S. teams. If I was traveling, for one thing, I was moving around a lot. So, I can't just become a diehard Vikings fan for 3 years. But at the same time, I didn't want to, become a diehard fan of most U.S. sports because I was always just afraid, at some point, there's going to be a scandal, and I got to be a responsible journalist, and I just don't want to have baggage of being a fan. And so soccer was kind of a way to, be a fan of something that didn't always get covered by where I was at journalistically. So I could just be this obnoxious fan of Manchester City, and nobody cared. It was never felt like a conflict of interest with my media outlet. So that was why I became so attached to them, and why I have their tattoos all over my arm now. And now
that was the Aguero goal, right?
It was the Aguero goal.
Yeah, I'm a Man United fan. I don't like that goal at all.
I could tell by your reaction that I was not saying something too super pleasant. But
Ryan Giggs is the reason. I'm from Wales, so it's a Ryan Giggs thing.
I could tell by your reactions. Yeah. But at the same time, the reason I'm a fan is just because I can just be a fan. I can just be a fan and not worry that it's going to come in conflict with my journalism. Yeah. So the other thing that I'm a fan of is Oklahoma State sports, but at some point, if I do this long enough, something with that program will come in conflict with my journalism. So I'd rather just compartmentalize that to them. But as a soccer fan, and at the country level too, I get to feel a little more free. I get to feel like I I can just enjoy it and not feel like it's going to come back to bite me at work one of these days. And that so far, over the last 20 years, that's proven true.
Yeah. Well, mate, I appreciate you coming in. Appreciate you sharing. I know it's a super busy week for you, and so I really appreciate you making time. Have a great week. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be great personally for you. Obviously, work's going to take care of a few things too. You're going to be busy, but I know you're going to find time to enjoy yourself. And for people listening, remind us, when's the day the book's coming out? Where do people find you? And where do they follow you on Instagram?
All right. Book first. It's called Never Say Never. It comes out April 21st. You can find it at neversayneverbook.com. And that link will also very conveniently tell you all about Red Dirt Unplugged and Red Dirt 2. They're all available everywhere books are sold on Amazon, but buy them from me. It's better. It's an easier way to support. I do it independently. It's an easier way to support. So buy them from me. I'll sign them. I'll ship them faster than Amazon will or anybody else. And that's neversayneverbook.com. And you can find me out in the real world. JS Crutchmer on Instagram. You can find me on most social media sites, or I've done it. My ego's got the best of me. You can also find me at crutchmer.com.
Awesome. Well, yeah, for people listening, I'll post those links in the description. You go straight to that, follow Josh, and maybe recognize you at a Thunder game, or recognize you on the sideline, or somewhere at an event, or surrounded by red dirt. And
please say hello when you do. I mean, it means a lot. So please do when you do, say hello.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.